The work of investigators is not just the fulfillment of official duties, but a true art that requires deep knowledge, intuition, and often incredible perseverance. When we think of investigations, we immediately think of cinematic plots with quick solutions and vivid revelations, but the reality is far from this illusion. In everyday life, investigators face many challenges, each of which requires a special approach. They work to create a complete picture of the incident, collecting evidence and reconstructing events. And sometimes, despite the many hours spent researching case files, some crimes remain unsolved. This may be due to a lack of evidence, a lack of witnesses, or, conversely, the presence of confusing and contradictory evidence. The complexity of the work of the investigator is also in the fact that many incidents at first glance look unambiguous, but when analyzed in depth, they turn out to be much more confusing. There are situations when the initial versions turn out to be completely untenable. For example, what appeared to be a crime motivated by jealousy turns out to be the result of a confluence of circumstances. Such variability requires the investigator to be particularly flexible and adaptable. Particularly impressive are the moments when an unexpected twist creeps into the case. A little noticed evidence, which was previously written off as unimportant, becomes a clue. It happens that a thing thrown at the scene of a crime, a fingerprint, or even an accidentally dropped word, change the course of the entire investigation, forcing a new look at seemingly familiar details. It is such surprises that require real skill from the investigator. To notice the invisible and unravel the most intricately woven tangle of lies and misconceptions. In today's video, we take a look at one of the cases that turned out to be not what it seemed at first glance. This story took place in Canada and immediately attracted public attention with its unusual course of events. Nicole Porciello, who also went by the last name Hasselman, was a 34-year-old woman with a kind heart and endless patience who worked in student support services at Templeton Secondary School. She was not just a helper, she was a true mentor to many kids who were sometimes lost in the complex maze of their adolescence. The work environment at this school was not just a place of duty for Nicole, but a second family, a place of companionship and genuine support. Nicole's colleagues saw her as an inspiration. Always responsive and helpful, she made friends among teachers, administrators, and other school staff. Her ability to connect with the most difficult teenagers was the visible embodiment of the miracle of pedagogy. Colleagues loved Nicole not only for her professionalism, but also for the simple human warmth she spread around. Outside of work, Nicole was a mother raising her son, who was 10 years old in 2018. Her son, just like herself, was a sensitive and kind boy. Nicole managed to combine her career and raising her child, investing in both with genuine passion and care. She strived to be an example to him of someone who always opens her heart to the world and makes it a little bit better. Unfortunately, January 16, 2018 was the day that changed the lives of Nicole's family and friends forever. Burnaby police said the crash, involving a 2017 charcoal gray Kia Sorento SUV in the 8000 block of Barnett Highway, happened on November 16 at approximately 10 p.m. The emergency services arrived at the scene, their sirens breaking the evening silence. In the glare of the warning lights, the car's mangled body looked even more ominous. After colliding with a lamppost, a man was trapped inside the car, his life now hanging in the balance. Rescuers quickly cordoned off the scene, coordinating with police and medical teams. They realized that time had become their invisible enemy. Every moment of delay could turn into tragedy. Their movements were quick and precise. It wasn't just a skill, it was a mastery honed by years of training and experience. Meanwhile, another group of rescuers brought special equipment into action. Hydraulic cutters gripped the metal furiously, tearing it apart with an ominous crack, but the operators remained focused and calm. It was amazing how much this process, which seemed frightening and loud, could inspire hope and confidence in the team's professionalism. The man inside the vehicle remained motionless. Medics fussed around him, ready to administer medical attention as soon as rescuers freed him from the steel embrace. Finally, after several minutes of hard work, the rescuers' commander signaled that the victim could be pulled out. The man was carefully extracted from the damaged car and placed in the caring hands of medics. Emergency services worked like a fine-tuned mechanism, each part of which performed its indispensable role. Medics immediately began to provide first aid, carefully checking the condition of the man. After making sure that the condition of the victim was stable, they carefully transferred him to a stretcher and took him to the ambulance. They have already started preparations for transportation to the nearest hospital, where the man will be able to receive more specialized care. The victim was John Pupel. When he was taken to the hospital, the doctors immediately conducted a full examination and diagnostics to rule out possible hidden injuries. They recorded a few bruises and a mild concussion, but fortunately, no serious injuries were found. The patient's condition was stable and John's life was not threatened. After providing the necessary medical care, the man was left under observation for some time to ensure a full recovery. John was a real estate agent who was allegedly struggling with an addiction to illegal substances. John and Nicole's relationship began the way great love often begins, with romance, deep affection, and mutual understanding. They dreamed of the future together, made plans, and shared thoughts with each other. At first, it seemed that quarrels bypassed them, and each new day brought even more joy from spending time together. However, over time, John began to show character traits that Nicole could not ignore. At first, his desire to control was perceived as caring, but gradually turned into an obsessive mania. He claimed that he was thus protecting Nicole from negative outside influences, alienating her from friends and family. It went as far as checking her cell phones and social media. His jealousy knew no bounds, and now he had a hard time hiding his aggression. Each new conflict only increased his desire to dominate, and Nicole found herself in a psychological trap that was not easy to get out of. On one occasion, he pushed her chest hard enough to cause her physical discomfort for weeks. Their relationship had lasted 7 years. Despite the pain and fear that gradually filled their life together, Nicole still believed in John's sweet promises that everything would change. He vowed that he would find the strength to be better, to once again be the loving and trustworthy partner he had been in the beginning. Those vows kept Nicole from finally breaking up, even though somewhere in the back of her mind she knew that John's behavior would likely never change. They had broken up several times, but then John would ask for another chance, and Nicole would give it. Their next breakup, which Nicole thought was final, happened 9 days before the car accident. But John wasn't going to put up with the breakup. He didn't want to let Nicole go. He was extremely jealous. He parked his car in front of her house and also published compromising photos of her. After John was extracted from the car, the police began their work, recording eyewitness statements and studying the scene of the accident. They carefully recorded every detail, trying to reconstruct the chronology of events that led to the collision with the lamppost. The questions were aimed at finding out the true causes of the accident. It was their duty to find the truth for the sake of justice and safety. The firefighters, having completed their part of the job, were putting away their equipment and preparing to return to base. But one of the officers made a shocking discovery. In a ditch, 30 feet from the car, lay a woman, unconscious but still breathing. It was Nicole. She was taken to the hospital where doctors tried everything they could, but unfortunately, they were unable to save her. A few days later, police issued a statement saying the following: a 34-year-old educational assistant and mother who died following an SUV crash in Burnaby last week suffered wounds that were indicative of foul play. The man is expected to make a full recovery, but the woman had injuries indicative of foul play. The autopsy of Nicole's body was conducted in the forensic laboratory, where she was taken a few hours after her death. An experienced medical examiner with many years of experience noticed the numerous wounds covering her body. Methodically and carefully, using professional tools, he proceeded to examine and fix all the injuries. Some wounds were deep and directed with obvious force, while others were more superficial, possibly indicative of a struggle. The total number of stab wounds counted by the examiner was 47. The wounds on Nicole's body were inflicted with 2 different knives. During the analysis, the expert not only recorded physical injuries, but also looked for possible marks that might shed light on the circumstances of Nicole's death. For example, missing defensive wounds on the hands could have indicated that the attack was sudden or that the victim was immobilized. The expert realized that it was his findings that would help law enforcement catch the perpetrator and get justice. Once the autopsy was completed, all of the expert's findings and observations were consolidated into an official report. This report became not just a document, but a key link in the chain of the murder investigation, providing the investigators with the necessary information to continue their work. After Nicole's death, her family, friends, and colleagues were plunged into an ocean of heartache that came upon them with an unexpected and uncontrollable force. Everyone who knew Nicole felt as if the world had stopped, leaving only the memories of her smile, the joy in her eyes, and unfulfilled hopes for the future. It was unbearably hard for the family to realize that they would never again embrace their beloved mother, daughter, and sister, hear her voice, or share the memories that were to be so many more. Nicole's friends, with whom she shared her deepest dreams and experiences, lost a like-minded person. They couldn't stop thinking about how hard she had worked to put her life back together, to make a fresh start, and to fight for her happiness. Nicole's colleagues realized how important a part of their lives and team she had been. The weight of the void created by her death was almost palpable, and each new workday was a reminder of all they had now lost. Nicole's cheerfulness and commitment to excellence was an inspiration to many of them, and this sudden loss made them realize how fragile human life is and how important it is to be more considerate of each other. Holidays have been the hardest for the family of Nicole Porciello. Carmine Porciello doesn't think he'll ever get used to his little sister not being around anymore. When you sit down for a family dinner, it's hard not to notice her seat is empty, he told. Where she would have been, she's not there. 13 days after Nicole's death, John Popel was arrested on November 29, 2018. Police have appealed to the public for any information that may assist the investigation.
A car crash. Just under 2 weeks ago, Nicole Hasselman was involved in a single car crash, and she had injuries that were suspicious in nature. And she died later in hospital, and I took conduct of that investigation. I can tell you now that yesterday, November 29th, 31-year-old Jan Popel was arrested and later charged with second-degree murder in connection with Nicole Hasselman's death. Mr. Popel will appear before a judge sometime today. This was an isolated incident, and those involved were known to each other. And there was no risk to the public safety. Our detectives worked very hard to compile and secure all the evidence for charge approval. And today's outcome would not have been possible without their tireless efforts. We recognize that this is a very difficult time for the family of Nicole Hasselman, for her friends, and for everyone else that was touched by Nicole while she was alive. And we just hope that we were able to provide some answers to the questions from Nicole's family. There is always that possibility that there is that one or more persons that have information that have yet to come forward to IHIT. We are alive to that, and again, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, standing here today, is that I'm speaking to those people that have information that perhaps for whatever reason they haven't come forward. Maybe they're just learning about this now. Please come forward today. We're always open to speaking with people that have information about any of our investigations.
Reconstructing the chronology of events was a critical aspect of the investigation into Nicole's death. It allowed the investigators to piece together all the available data to see how the events unfolded and at what time they occurred. This structuring of information helped to identify inconsistencies in John's testimony and analyze his behavior. After all, every minute could make a difference in understanding what exactly led to Nicole's tragic death. Investigators scrutinized surveillance video, phone records, and text messages between Nicole and John. This data provided the most accurate picture of where Nicole was at any given moment, who she was in contact with, and what exactly was going on around her. The chronology was also important to the prosecution's case against John. Without concrete evidence of his involvement in the incident, collected in strict sequence, it would have been difficult to convince the court of his guilt. As mentioned earlier, Nicole and John's relationship lasted 7 years, oscillating between breakups and reunions. But the chain of events leading up to Nicole's death began to unfold 9 days before the fatal car accident. Nicole had told John that their relationship was over by starting to communicate with another man, which reportedly took John's jealousy to unprecedented heights. On the evening of November 16th, he picked Nicole up in a rental vehicle while her son was at hockey practice and got into a dispute. John then pulled out 2 kitchen knives and began stabbing Nicole, who was sitting in the passenger seat, multiple times on her body. Then, instead of calling for help, John took off his bloody jacket, pulled out his cell phone, and started recording video. In a desperate attempt to save her life, she could be heard telling John that she loved him. John showed no remorse, telling her she was stabbed because he could not handle her moving on with another man. He then drove home, leaving Nicole in the car outside while he went in and sent some emails, one resigning from his job. Nicole spent 2 hours in the car while John sent emails, paid some bills, and even did some online shopping for a new TV and dishwasher. He then got back into the rental car and found Nicole still alive. It is believed he intended to stage a car crash to make it look like Nicole had died as a result of the collision. When John Pupel slammed his foot on the accelerator and smashed into a streetlight at high speed, Nicole, who was not wearing a seatbelt, went flying out. Based on the evidence gathered, John Pupel was charged with second-degree murder. The trial, which began in 2020 and lasted several months, was another ordeal for Nicole's family and friends. At the trial, the video that John Pupel recorded on his cell phone after he had wounded Nicole multiple times was played. Before the Crown played the video, the judge warned the courtroom that it was going to be graphic and invited those in the gallery to leave if they felt uncomfortable. The 1-minute video showed the injured victim struggling with her breathing. Pupel, seated beside her, can be heard claiming that she had disrespected him. Instead of calling for help, a jealous and vengeful John Pupel declared to Nicole that it was all her fault. "You just took from me, disrespected me for months and years," Pupel said on a video he recorded after he attacked Nicole with 2 knives. A visibly distraught Joe Porciello, the victim's father, left the courtroom during the playing of the video. Pupel sat with his head lowered in the prisoner's dock. Carmine Porciello, the victim's brother, shouted at him, "Watch the video! Lift your head up!" said the brother. The judge said she understood the video was upsetting and ordered that court take the 15-minute morning break. After the video, the father and brother were among 4 people who delivered emotional victim impact statements in court. The dad described his daughter as a beautiful soul and the pillar of their family. "You have destroyed our family," he said, addressing his remarks to Pupel. "We cannot forgive you for what you have done." The brother said the crime had reduced him to being nothing but a zombie, and added he was filled with anger and rage toward the accused. Crown Counsel Jacqueline Madden summarized a number of other victim impact statements, including one from the victim's young son. The boy expressed that his mother was his best friend and that he had lost part of his heart when she died, said Madden. In the ruling, the judge called Pupel's actions callous, cruel, and self-absorbed, but also said he has demonstrated remorse. Nicole's father, Joe Porciello, did not agree. "It made me sick to my stomach because if he was remorseful, he would have showed a tear in his eye," he said outside court. "He would show any upsetting. He looked like he was out for lunch when he came in last time in the courtroom." Pupel pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The charge of second-degree murder carries an automatic life sentence. The next question was only how many years before he would have the opportunity to apply for parole. The prosecutor was pushing for a minimum sentence of 15 years, while Popel's attorney wanted a minimum of 10 years. Both of these options did not sit well with Nicole's family. Given Popel's history of abusive and jealous behavior towards Nicole, her cousin Gina Giuliano feels he should have been charged and convicted of first-degree murder, which brings with it no chance of parole for 25 years. I don't think any number is enough, but if 25 is the maximum, I think that's what he should be getting, she said. We have somebody who is not even 40 years old who, in the worst-case scenario, could be out when he's 50 or 55, says Giuliano. That is unacceptable. In the week leading up to the sentencing, Nicole's friends and family have launched a social media campaign highlighting the voids left by Nicole's death and asking whether the punishment will fit the crime. We can't have people like this walking our streets, says Giuliano. We can't have precedent like this, showing that a vicious crime has a sentence so low that it makes it easy for anyone to do this crime. In a statement to the court and Nicole's family, Popel expressed regret and remorse. "I've been waiting for this moment for a long time to tell you how sorry I am," he said. In April 2021, Jean Popel was sentenced to life imprisonment. After 15 years, he will be able to apply for parole. Nicole's family said Popel's sentence was not severe enough. They told a group of reporters outside the courthouse that justice doesn't exist in this country. Nicole's cousin Gina Giuliano said she was disappointed in the ruling. "In 15 years, he's actually eligible to be walking the streets," she said. "Is that what we want to tell our community?"